Ohio has 10 amusement parks that Google Maps forgot, and one of them had a Ferris wheel with trees growing through its spokes. Right now, those trees are still there. You're driving through a quiet Ohio neighborhood, modest houses, tree-lined streets, the kind of place where nothing unusual ever happened. And then you stop, and you think, wait, was there a roller coaster here? Because here's the thing about Ohio. This state keeps secrets. Not small secrets, big ones. A century of summer memories, buried under subdivisions, grown over by forests, swallowed by shorelines that don't remember what they used to be. And today, we're going to find them. I'm counting down 10 abandoned amusement parks in Ohio that Google Maps forgot. Parks where families measured their summers. Parks where children became teenagers, and teenagers became parents. Places that are gone from every map. But if you know where to look, the ground will still show you. Hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because this is the kind of video you'll want to see every time we drop one. Let's walk through the empty gates. 10. Brady Lake Park, Portage County, Northeast Ohio. Just outside the small city of Ravenna, on the western shore of Brady Lake, there's a quiet residential neighborhood, modest houses, a public boat launch, the kind of ordinary lakeside scenery that gives you absolutely no signal that anything unusual was ever here. But for 53 years, from 1891 to 1944, Brady Lake Park was one of the loudest places in Northeast Ohio on a summer Saturday. Built right on the interurban electric railway lines that connected small Ohio cities before the automobile, Brady Lake drew thousands of visitors every weekend. Think dance pavilions, picnic grounds, a carousel, the whole thing. And the electric railway delivered people directly to its gates. Then the car came. The interurban lines began to fail. The captive audience that railroads had guaranteed simply drifted away. And then what finished it wasn't economics. It was gambling. During World War II, illegal gambling moved into the park's facilities. Law enforcement got involved. The family reputation evaporated. The county shut it down in 1944. The structures came down. The land was subdivided. A neighborhood was built directly over its footprint. On Google Maps today, you see Brady Lake Road and scattered residential parcels. No marker, no historical plaque, no indication that for half a century, this quiet lakefront was where Portage County came alive. 9. Puritas, Springs Park, Cleveland's west side. On the west side of Cleveland, along Puritas Avenue near the Rocky River Valley, there is a stable, well-kept residential neighborhood. Tree-lined streets, nothing unusual. But from 1898 to 1958, this was one of Cleveland's major amusement destinations. 60 acres of parkland built around a natural spring, and at its center, the Cyclone, a wooden roller coaster that opened in the 1920s and became a genuine Cleveland landmark. Kids grew up measuring their courage against it. Parents gave directions by it. It was visible from the surrounding streets. The Cyclone was not a small ride. It was the kind of structure that defined a neighborhood skyline. Then, declining ridership hit. The costs of maintaining aging wooden infrastructure became impossible to justify. The park closed in 1958. The Cyclone came down. The land sold for residential development. And unlike some parks, Puritas Springs left absolutely nothing behind. Not a gate, not a foundation, not a single sign. The neighborhood absorbed it entirely. On Google Maps, you see Puritas Avenue. The Cyclone is not there. 60 years of summer Saturdays are not there. 8. Crystal Beach Park, Vermilion, Lake Erie shoreline. Halfway between Cleveland and Sandusky on the Lake Erie shore, Crystal Beach Park billed itself as the Park of 1,000 Trees. Look at photographs from its peak years, and you'll see why. A dense canopy of mature trees shading a midway that ran right along the lakefront, with a dance hall widely considered the finest on the entire Great Lakes. Big bands, dancers from across northern Ohio, music carrying out over the water on summer evenings. Crystal Beach opened in 1907 and operated for 55 years. It was a classic Lake Erie trolley park, built to serve resort communities along the shoreline and the industrial cities of the region. Then a fire in 1947 damaged key facilities and started a slow decline. The park never fully reversed. Attendance fell through the 1950s. The automobile gave families more choices. The lakefront resort model began to feel dated. The park closed in 1962. Today, Vermilion's lakefront is a pleasant small-town harbor district with marinas and restaurants. The dance hall where the best bands on the Great Lakes once played does not appear anywhere on the map. 7. Coney Island, Cincinnati, Little Miami River Valley. Now here's where things get strange.
Coney Island, Cincinnati opened in 1886, making it one of the oldest amusement parks in Ohio. And for most of the 20th century, it was the dominant summer destination for the region. Sunlight Pool, one of the largest recirculating swimming pools in the world, plus rides, a midway, a ballroom, and riverfront access. Then Kings Island opened in 1972, 15 miles to the north. The crowds followed. The major rides migrated north. What remained at Coney Island became a reduced operation centered on Sunlight Pool. But here's the crazy part. That reduced operation still continues today. And behind the fences that separate paying guests from the rest of the property, behind the operating sections of the park, sections of the original park sit in various states of abandonment. Structures and foundations from a version of Coney Island that no longer exists, visible to anyone who knows where to look. It's a park that is half alive and half dead. Operating in the front, quietly deteriorating in the back. On Google Maps, you can see the pool complex. What you cannot see is the line where the living park ends and the abandoned park begins. 6. SeaWorld, Ohio, Aurora, Portage County. Take a breath on this one, because this story needs to be separated from what comes later at the same lake. SeaWorld, Ohio opened in 1970 on the eastern shore of Geauga Lake, the fourth SeaWorld park to open in the United States. And as it turned out, it would become the only one in American history to be completely demolished. Not repurposed, demolished, gone. For 30 years, SeaWorld Ohio was a legitimate regional destination. Marine animal shows, roller coasters, water attractions. At its peak, over 1 million visitors a year and hundreds of jobs in Northeast Ohio. In 2000, the park closed. The marine animals were transferred. The rides were sold or scrapped. The structures came down entirely. The land was absorbed into the adjacent Geauga Lake property, which has its own catastrophic story still coming. If you like what we're doing, take 1 second and hit that like button. It genuinely helps us bring stories like this one to more people. Today, the eastern shore of Geauga Lake, where SeaWorld Ohio stood for 30 years, is cleared land in various stages of redevelopment. The only SeaWorld park in American history to be completely demolished does not appear on any map. 5. LeSwordsville Lake, Americana Amusement Park, Southwest Ohio. Off Route 4, a commercial and residential landscape that holds the ghost of a park that survived almost everything. LeSwordsville Lake opened in 1922 as a classic regional park, the kind of place that served a specific geography of small cities and rural counties with no other major entertainment destination nearby. Its signature attraction was the Screeching Eagle, a wooden roller coaster built in 1927. Then, in 1990, a freak electrical fire caused millions of dollars in damage. The park limped through the decade, closed, was briefly revived under the name Americana in 2002, died again within a few seasons. But the Screeching Eagle kept standing, a wooden skeleton visible from the road long after the last ride. Urban explorers came from everywhere to photograph it. It was documented extensively, a coaster that had survived a fire and 2 closures staring down a third abandonment. The third abandonment won. The Screeching Eagle was eventually demolished. The site is largely cleared today. On Google Maps, you see Route 4. The Screeching Eagle is not there. 4. Euclid Beach Park, Cleveland's east side. Now listen carefully because this one is different. Euclid Beach Park ran for 75 years, and it did something almost no major amusement park in American history ever successfully pulled off. free admission. Walk through the gates for nothing. Pay for rides and food, but the park itself? Yours. Combined with a strict no alcohol policy and a hard-won family reputation, Euclid Beach became something more than a business. It became a civic institution. It belonged to Cleveland. At its peak, the park offered a grand carousel, the Thriller roller coaster, a flying turns ride, a laugh-in-the-dark attraction, and a popcorn stand whose recipe became so beloved it outlasted the park itself and became a regional tradition. When Euclid Beach closed in 1969, Clevelanders mourned it like a loss to the city, not just the end of a business. The Grand Carousel was rescued by the Western Reserve Historical Society and still operates today at their University Circle facility. The famous arched entrance gate was preserved and relocated to the site where it stands today as a marker. Everything else is gone. The Thriller is gone. The flying turns are gone. But you can go find that arch. And if you stand under it and look out at the neighborhood that's there now, you're standing in the memory of 75 summers. 3. Idora Park, Youngstown, Mahoning County. This is where the story stops being about amusement parks and starts being about something much larger. Idora Park opened in 1899 and ran for 85 years. And its story is inseparable from the story of Youngstown itself, because the park and the city rose together and fell together in a way that makes Idora Park something more than a lost attraction. It makes it a monument to a specific American tragedy. At its peak, Idora had 2 wooden roller coasters, the Wildcat and the Jackrabbit, and a ballroom that hosted nationally known acts. The Wildcat was Youngstown's signature ride, a classic wooden coaster from the 1920s that generations of families measured their summers against. Then, in April 1984, fire broke out in the Wildcat structure. The coaster burned. The park was already struggling. Youngstown's steel industry was collapsing. The mills were going silent across the Mahoning Valley. Tens of thousands of people were leaving. The Wildcat fire was the final blow. Idora Park closed in 1984, the same year the steel mills went quiet across the valley. The Jackrabbit and other structures stood for years before demolition. The land eventually transferred to Mill Creek Metro Parks. Today the site is wooded and quiet, with some remnants visible if you look. On Google Maps, you see Mill Creek Park. You do not see the Wildcat. You do not see the 85 summers that preceded the silence. 2. Chippewa Lake Park, Medina County. Here's where everything changes, because every other park on this list is gone. Chippewa Lake Park? The ruins are still there. Chippewa opened in 1878 and operated for exactly 100 years, closing in 1978 on its centennial season. And then, for decades after it closed, the rides and structures were simply left in place. Not preserved, not demolished, just left. The wooden roller coaster stood in the trees. The Ferris wheel stood in the clearing. And over the years, this is not an exaggeration, trees grew up through the wheel's spokes, through the steel framework, until the Ferris wheel and the forest became a single object, neither fully natural nor fully man-made. It became one of the most photographed images in all of Ohio urban exploration. The Tumblebug, a rare ride of which only a handful of examples still exist in the world, sat in the woods, rusting. Its cars still on the track. Its mechanical components slowly surrendering to weather and vegetation. Photographers came from across the country. The park became known as one of the most visually extraordinary examples of nature reclaiming human construction anywhere in the United States. In 2020, Medina County purchased the property for $2.1 million with plans to develop it as a nature park, while preserving the Ferris wheel as a historical display, incorporating the Tumblebug, and building a museum on site. As of 2024, the Ferris wheel, the Little Dipper roller coaster frame, the flying cages, and the Tumblebug are still standing. The Tumblebug cars were removed and set aside.
One has been restored and sits outside a small on-site museum. On Google Maps, you can find Chippewa Lake. What the map cannot show you is a Ferris wheel slowly being reclaimed by trees, or a century of summers being taken back, quietly, by the ground that hosted them. 1. Geauga Lake, Aurora, Portage County. 120 years. Take a moment with that number. 120 years of continuous operation. Through the trolley era, through the automobile era, through the Depression, through the war years, through suburban expansion, through the rise of the regional theme park industry. Geauga Lake survived all of it. It grew. It evolved. The park was established in 1887. By the 1920s, it had a massive wooden roller coaster. It added a water park, looping steel coasters. When it added the corkscrew, it became one of the only parks in the world with 2 looping coasters simultaneously. In 1999, Six Flags acquired the park and invested heavily, rebranding it as Six Flags Ohio and positioning it as a direct competitor to Cedar Point, 60 miles west on Lake Erie. The competition proved unsustainable. Six Flags struggled financially across its entire chain. In 2004, Cedar Fair, Cedar Point's parent company, purchased Geauga Lake for $145 million. Combined attendance at both parks had fallen from an estimated 2.7 million visitors in 2001 to approximately 700,000 by 2004. And here's where everything changes. Cedar Fair owned both parks. Cedar Fair made a decision. In 2007, they closed the Geauga Lake ride side entirely, citing insufficient market demand to support 2 major parks in the same region. The water park remained open 1 more season, and then that closed too in 2016. The rides were auctioned. The roller coasters were sold for scrap or shipped to other parks. The infrastructure was stripped. The land sat empty. 120 years of operation. Gone in 2 years of ownership.
The community response was not quiet. Residents, former employees, and generations of visitors understood what had happened. A company that owned a competing park had purchased Geauga Lake, not to operate it, but to eliminate it. The economic logic was clean. The human cost was not. Thousands of jobs. A park that had been a fixed point in the lives of Northeast Ohio families for 5 generations. Gone. Not because it had failed, not because it burned, not because of flooding or bankruptcy, but because a competitor bought it and decided the market was better served by absence. Now, and this is the update the original story couldn't tell you, as of September 2024, the Aurora City Council voted to purchase 48 acres of land along the lake with plans to return the site to a public recreational park. The idea is to take it back to what Geauga Lake was before 1887. A picnic ground, a fishing spot, a place for the community. Where it began. On Google Maps, you can find Geauga Lake. You can see the outline of the property, the parking areas, the lake itself. What does not appear is any indication that for 120 years, this was one of the most beloved places in Ohio, or that the decision to end it was made not by time or disaster or any natural force, but by a corporation that stood to benefit from its disappearance. Drive across Ohio on any of its major interstates, and what you see is a state that presents itself plainly. Farmland, mid-sized cities, the flat glaciated plain, the long gray line of Lake Erie to the north. It looks like a landscape that keeps no secrets. But underneath that surface, in the residential neighborhoods of Cleveland and Youngstown, along the shores of inland lakes in Medina and Portage County, in the river valleys and the lakefront communities, the foundations of 100 summers are still there, buried under subdivisions, standing in forests that have had decades to grow through them. The parks on this list were not marginal places. They were the places where Ohio families marked time, where children became teenagers and teenagers became parents, where the summers were organized and the years were measured. They are gone from the maps. Most are gone from the landscape. But the ground remembers. And occasionally, if you know where to look, the ground will show you. If this video changed how you see the places you drive past every day, share it with someone who needs to see it. And drop a comment right now and tell me,